To make European Union laws today, you need two conditions. There's a double majority. You need half the member states, there's 27 member states, so you need at least 14 states to be in favour of European law, as long as they have a qualified or weighted majority of votes between them. So each state has so many votes, and the big states 29 votes each, and Ireland 7 votes. So we basically have a quarter of the voting weight of Germany, France, Britain and Italy. They have 29, we have 7. And the total number of votes, 345, and the qualified majority is 255, etc. But to make a law today, you need half the member states, 14 out of 27, and a qualified majority of the weighted votes, with the big states having 29 each, and we having 7. That's the present system. What Lisbon would do, would replace this present system by a new system, whereby to make European laws after Lisbon, you need half the member states, it goes up actually to 55%, 15 rather than 14, that's a detail, half the member states, as long as they have 65% of the total EU population between them. So if Lisbon goes through, half the member states of the European Union will be able to make laws for the whole Union and impose them if necessary on the other half, as long as the half with the majority has 65%, basically 2/3 of the total EU population between them. So this is a big change which obviously advantages the big states. In other words, instead of the big states having 29 votes each as at present and we having 7, we have a quarter of the votes of the big states. If Lisbon goes through, you have half the member states, as long as they have 2/3 of the population. Germany has 80 million, Britain, France, Italy have around 60 million apiece, and we have 4 million. So instead of Germany having 4 times our voting weight as at present, 29 votes against 7, Germany have 80 million, and we have 4. Britain, France, Italy would have 60 million each, and we have 4. In other words, Germany would increase its relative strength vis-a-vis Ireland from its present 4 times. They have 29 votes, we have 7, so they have 4 times our vote. But under Lisbon, they would have 18 times in population terms. And Britain, France, Italy, instead of having 4 times, would have 15 times. And we, instead of having 2% of all the votes, or 7 votes is 2% of the total number of votes on the EU Council of Ministers who make the laws, instead of that we'd have 0.9, just of 1%, just less than 1%. That's the biggest change that Lisbon would make in power political terms. It halves our voting weight from 2 to less than 1%. It increases Germany's from 4 times Ireland's weight to 18 times on a population basis, and increases Britain, France, Italy's from 4 times to 15 times our voting weight. So that is why Germany and France are very anxious to get the Lisbon Treaty. They get so much more of a say and more power in making European Union laws. And incidentally, the rules of the Eurozone would empower the Eurozone countries, the 16 member states of the Eurozone, to impose stringent sanctions and heavy, limitless fines on countries that don't get their government deficit down to a particular target level. The member states of the Eurozone, 16 countries using the euro, are supposed to have a maximum deficit. That's the difference between what the government raises in taxes and what the government spends in public spending of 3% a year. Our deficit at the moment is nearly 12% of GDP. The ideal deficit is 3% of GDP, so we're well out of line. And there's heavy pressure on the Irish government to get its deficit down. The difference with what the government raises in revenue, and the revenue has collapsed, and what it spends in public spending, and that's going to give us a savage budget in December. But the rules of the Eurozone allow the European Commission to recommend to the Council of Ministers of the Eurozone countries a stringent enforcement regime on a country that's delinquent, that's out of line, that's to get its deficit down to whatever is recommended by the Commission of the Council of Ministers. And if it fails to do that within a particular period of time, it's open to having heavy sanctions imposed on it, including limitless fines. This has never been done so far, but it is very likely to be done in the next few years, especially when the big states get more power to do it, as they do under the new population-based system of making European Union laws. It will be much easier, in other words, for stringent enforcement regime to be imposed on Ireland's budget and budgetary policy with the threat of limitless fines in the background under the Treaty of Lisbon, because it will be much easier for the big states, big member states of the Eurozone and the Commission to enforce such a procedure under the changed voting rules of the Lisbon Treaty. So that would impinge very intimately and in detail on us as regards our budgetary system in the next few years if Lisbon goes through. There's another point in relation to the Commissioner, which I mentioned in passing. We've been promised every state can keep a Commissioner under Lisbon. That's allowed under the treaty. But we lose the right to decide who the Commissioner is under the Treaty of Lisbon. The Commission has the monopoly of proposing all laws of the European Union system that are actually made by the Council of Ministers on the basis of the Commission's proposals. The 27 Commissioners, Charlie McCreevy is the Irish Commissioner, and at present the national government has the absolute right to decide who the Commissioner is on the basis of the proposal it puts forward every 5 years. Under the Treaty of Lisbon, however, the right to propose is replaced by a right to make suggestions for the incoming Commission President to decide. And the incoming Commission President, in turn, is decided by the big states on the basis of majority voting on a population size basis. So the new Commission post-Lisbon would be, the first step would be for the member states, particularly the big states, to decide who the Commission President is, and then the Commission President would appoint all the other commissioners on the basis of the suggestions from member states. And if the Commission President, interacting with the big states, doesn't like suggestion 1, they'll ask for suggestion 2 and suggestion 3. So that the new Commission must be entirely compliant to the Commission President and the big states who have the decisive say in appointing the Commission President. Thus, a bottom-up mode of appointing the Commission, the European Commission, would be replaced by a top-down one, which would suit the interests of the big states. So it's a takeover bid by the big states due to the change in the method of voting, putting it on a pure population basis, as if it's all one state, and Germany has 80 million and we have 4. So, that's going to make it much easier for the big states to make European Union laws, and they'll have more of a say in the Commission by having a decisive say, the big states, in all the commissioners, through their say in deciding who the Commission President is. That's what really reconciled the Germans, the French, the British, and the Italians to the proposal that there be a reduction in the number of commissioners by 1/3. The Germans and French said, all right, we'll go along with that because we have the decisive say in appointing all the commissioners to the Commission President. So those are two important changes in the mode of deciding laws and making decisions in the European Union, which unfortunately are not being told to the people in the book that set up the Referendum Commission. It's an absolute scandal. When I looked up the Referendum Act says the Referendum Commission, which is given €4 million to do its job, is meant to tell citizens how the Constitution would be affected by the proposed Constitution amendment. It says nothing about that. Instead, it summarizes in a very ambiguous way some of the changes in the Commission of the Council of Ministers. It doesn't bring out that Ireland's voting weight would halve and that the big states' voting weight would increase much more than 4 times Ireland's now, 20 times and 15 times under Lisbon. It doesn't bring that point out, and doesn't bring out the point about the change in the mode of appointing the commissioners. So it's just doing the government's job, and Judge Frank Clark has absolutely no right to arrogate to himself the job of pontificating on radio about this or that issue of the Treaty of Lisbon. It's not his function. Their sole job is to produce a statement telling citizens under the Referendum Act what the Treaty of Lisbon would do, and they have not done and are not doing that job.